They had either the same name or similar names with people
Right.
that had some sort of a criminal record.
If somebody made a typo when they
Yeah.
put their name in the system, and then they were made ineligible.
And then there was also some concern that some of that was deliberate because so much of it was taking place in Democratic districts. Yeah, it's very disconcerting, the idea that someone would try to rig an election.
Yeah.
I mean, we would like to think that that is an absolutely un-American thing to think of. But people can
It is
come
an
up with
un-American thing.
It is, but
Yeah.
people can come up with very strange reasons for justification of very awful acts.
Yeah.
And this seems to be one of them. If they think their side is right.
Well, that points to the superdelegate issue that Democrats
Yes.
have been dealing with, where people who have been arguing to keep the system of superdelegates, where in a state like mine in Hawaii, for example, where we've got 4 superdelegate votes, 2 for the members of Congress and 2 for the senators.
Explain that to people who don't know what a superdelegate
So
means.
this is something that is created by the political parties themselves. So the Democratic Party has been using the superdelegate system where as people are running for president, you have a certain number of delegates that go to one person or another based on that state's rules. So some states say it's winner take all. Other states say that it's proportional. So if you get 60% of the vote, that means you get 60% of the delegates. But then you have this special category of superdelegates, which there are over 700 of them. It includes all 435 members all Democratic members of Congress, Democrats in the Senate, and people who are appointed by the party leadership, both at the state and the national level. And so what we saw in my state of Hawaii, for example, is over 70% of the voters voted for Bernie Sanders, but out of those 4 superdelegate votes, he got 1, which is mine. So the superdelegates don't have to cast their votes to reflect how their constituents voted.
So how did the rest of them vote?
They voted for Hillary. So that puts you in a situation where, and this is not about, well, Bernie would have won without superdelegates. This is not even what that's about. This is about really looking at people casting their votes, and then you have this special group of people who are either elected or appointed who can then say, nah, I don't agree with the way that the people in my state or my district voted, so I'm just going to vote the other way, and then shift potentially the outcome of that election for that state or for the country.
So did it shift it for Hawaii?
Yeah. Yeah. So Hillary won Hawaii's superdelegates, but the people voted differently.
And it was 70% of the people voted for Bernie?
It wasn't close. It was
But she won the state.
And that was how you saw
That's so
in
dirty.
some states where, I think, I don't know, Vermont, there were a few other states that I remember looking at where when they were counting the votes as they were coming in, they would report one number, but if Bernie won the state, his number was 0, and then there was a certain number that was already built into Hillary's count before the votes were even finally tallied, because she had already had the declared support of those superdelegates within that state. So the Republicans don't do this. I think they may have superdelegates, but those superdelegates are required to reflect the votes of their constituencies. So they don't have the freedom to change their vote or change their mind. But this is something that I've been fighting to try to reform within our party, is to get rid of superdelegates, to make it so that we have open primaries, so that you don't have to be a card-carrying party member to vote in a Democratic primary, because that was another problem we saw across the country, where people were turned away because in some cases, well, you didn't register with the party a year ago, which is the requirement. And so have open primaries, and then you have same-day registration. If you're not registered to vote, you should be able to register to vote on the day of the election so that you can participate in our democracy. So,
those things seem so clear-cut. That seems so cut and dry. But the superdelegate issue in particular, that's so disturbing.
Yeah.
That seems so dirty.
Yeah. So there's been some progress made since then, though. Just recently, the DNC had a meeting where it was a very strong majority of people who voted to bar superdelegates from casting their their own free votes in the first ballot in a presidential convention. So I don't know. It's been a long time since it's gone to the second or third ballot, but that was a major step forward to make sure that as people are going and casting their votes in these primaries, that they're not risking being overruled by, again, a group of special individuals who are elected officials, who are lobbyists, and who are party officials, and people coming from all different backgrounds.
Is there any resistance to getting rid of these superdelegates?
Oh, yeah. The resistance was very strong. It was not a given that
Who
this
are
was
these
going to
people?
pass at all. People who are very, very invested in this system.
But it seems like they
who-
would have to be invested in keeping the system rigged, like making it easy to influence elections by having these few people that you can control, having influence over these people. These people have massive influence over the results of the election. That is so.
It's so counterintuitive to what we stand for with our democracy.
Yeah.
And I think there is, it's a fear of losing power, I think ultimately is what it comes down to. And you have people who said, hey, look, I've given my life to the party. I've put in all of this time and energy. I'm a volunteer. I'm doing this and all of that, which all of that is fine and it's great. But that shouldn't make it so that, as myself as a superdelegate, and I've talked about this, my vote shouldn't count for any more than yours or anyone else's. And that we should be strengthening and empowering and uplifting the voices of the people rather than saying, well, this small elite group has way more power than you, so we'll see what they think about things.
It's so bizarre that that's a part of the system. It just seems like that's something that should have been eradicated a long time ago.
It should have been.
Now, Bernie Sanders had to be fuming.
Yeah.
I mean, from that, and then from finding out that the DNC actively conspired to have him lose the primary, all of that.
Sorry, one last thing on the superdelegates that some of those who support it have said is that it is their job to be able to save the country in case the people elect someone who isn't good. Really?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is a hilarious justification.
Yeah.
Oh, you know better than the whole country.
Yeah.
You must be super smart.
Yeah.
What kind of test do you have to take
Yeah.
to take a superdelegate? To become a superdelegate, what do you have to do?
Yeah, it's certainly not a written test. No, it's really, again, you're either an elected member of Congress or you're somebody who the party chooses.
Wow. The idea that the reason to keep that is because you know better. I mean, that's essentially what they're saying.
Yeah.
You know better than all the people that voted.
Yeah. So disrespectful
It's crazy.
to people.
It's really crazy.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, that's been, I think, a positive thing that has come through all of this is more people are saying, I honestly wasn't paying a bunch of attention to superdelegates before all of this. And a lot of people had their eyes opened up to say, okay, this is clearly wrong.
Yeah.
Why was it there in the first place? Let's do something to fix the process.
Well, most people, I don't think, until this election, the general public wasn't even aware that was the case.
Yeah.
And then when people find out about it, they go, wait, what?
Yeah,
They can just
exactly.
decide to not vote the same way the people voted?
Yeah.
And then the state can lose?
Yeah.
Or, the person can lose the state, even though 70% of the state voted for that person?
Right.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is.
Did you read Donna Brazil's book?
I didn't read the whole book. I got excerpts from it and of it.
I was shocked that they conspired to have Hillary win the primaries. I was more shocked that more people weren't outraged.
Yeah. What does that tell you?
It tells you that people have sort of resigned to the idea that this is a corrupt system,
Yeah.
that they don't have time. It goes back to what we were saying earlier, that people are exhausted.
Yeah.
Most people are exhausted.
And I think that's where you see a lot of the energy that came around for somebody like Bernie Sanders or somebody like Donald Trump, who are perceived as being not of the system.
Yeah.
But it shows us where we need to go, honestly. And you're talking about authentic, honest leaders who have integrity, and I think people are not as blind to that. People can tell.
Yeah.
People can tell if you're being real or not, or if you're selling them a false bill of goods.
I think they're better at it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paying more attention.
Well, it's also this there's enough footage of people now.
That's yeah. Everybody's a reporter now.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to go back and you say, well, look at this interview from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
When they were completely different. Like, what happened? I mean, there's also like calculated maneuvers that people do politically to align themselves with one group or another, where they realize, like, okay, there's a lot of money in being a this, that's a that. You know,
Right.
there's a lot of money in being a whatever it is. You know, Republican or Democrat, or there's an angle for success.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's all of those different labels and things that people are capitalizing on within the political world, I think, are the things that are turning off more and more people
Right.
to the politics, because then it's like, well, if you're not branded with this label, then I'm not going to talk to you, or I'm not going to have a conversation, or it's this camp versus another camp, this tribe versus another tribe, rather than like recognizing even amongst our own families and friends and communities, like we figure out ways to talk things through and find ways to collaborate, and areas where we can agree to disagree on certain things, but we can do that with, you know, what we in Hawaii call aloha, and with respect,
Yeah.
and actually find a way through to move forward.